What are you doing? What? It's okay. We can have some more later. You don't mean that. Huh? Oh, stop lying. I'm not lying. You're just saying that to make us stop. I know you're not gonna let us eat more later. We might. Look, I know this is our last window of opportunity to eat this before you try to not eat it for as long as possible. How do you know? I'm you. You can't lie to me. Now finish the bag, and what else can we have while we're here?
All right, let's unpack this for a second. One of the obstacles to being able to stop when we want to stop when it comes to certain foods is feeling like there's a limited window of opportunity to eat that certain food before we're going to actively try to not eat it again for as long as possible. It's limited window of opportunity, it's feelings of scarcity, all these things that make it very, very difficult to say like a confident, peaceful no when we're done, rather than keep eating and try to maximize our opportunity or maximize our window of time with any given food. I know that a massive turning point in my own journey with food was eating in such a way where I was including these foods on a daily basis. And like, look, I know there are immediately obstacles to that. I know the moment I say, permission to include any food you want on a daily basis, I know that's a huge can of worms. Like, it's not all that simple. It's not as simple as just saying, oh, just eat what you feel like, trust your body. Yeah, 100% understand that it's not that simple. But what I'm getting at here is that one of the kind of most important moments in my own journey, at least, when working on this kind of stuff, was realizing that, okay, it might not be super easy to stop eating certain foods, but it becomes so much easier when we genuinely feel like that food is going to be available at our next meal if we want it, later in the day, tomorrow. But there's something that kind of sneaks into a lot of people's mindsets when trying to practice this, and it is trying to say, yeah, it's cool, I can stop now because I can have this food later or I can have it tomorrow, with the thinly veiled intention not to have that food later. It's like when we try to tell ourselves, I can stop now. It's okay for me to stop now because this food will be available later. And we don't genuinely mean it. We're just saying that as a way to try to make ourselves stop. We can't really lie to ourselves in that way. It doesn't work. If there's part of us in there that just genuinely knows like, hey, you don't really mean that, later is going to come and we're not going to be given another opportunity to eat this food. We're going to be making every effort to be as conservative as possible with our food choices. If part of us knows that that's really what's going on when we say it's okay, I can have more later, then it's still going to be as hard as ever to draw a line with particular foods because it's still becomes this limited window of opportunity. Feelings of shame and guilt can really get in the way here too. If we're not managing shame and guilt around food, if we're feeling guilty for eating certain foods, if we're feeling shameful while we're eating certain foods, then that is going to get in the way of the experience of that food. Now, what I mean by that is we can't really connect with the experience of eating something when we're preoccupied with shame and guilt. So if we're trying to say, it's okay, I can have some later, but there's just a lot of guilt, a lot of shame, a lot of mixed feelings kind of flying around, and we know that later when we try to eat something, it's gonna not be a great experience. Like, again, that can complicate this situation a little bit. And for sure, these feelings aren't super simple all the time. There's a lot that plays into how we feel while making particular choices with food. Now, we can do all the mindset work in the world here. We can, say affirmations in the damn mirror until we're like blue in the face. But what's really required is to follow through on that promise to have a bit of that food later, even if maybe you don't really feel like it later. I'm not saying you need to eat a massive quantity of this food later, but we need to prove to ourselves that it is actually available later. Like if you had a friend that was always letting you down, always being a bit of a prick, and they said, don't worry, I'm gonna change, and they never changed obviously you'd stop believing them. But if you had a friend who let you down a few times and then changed the way that they were actually acting, trust can be rebuilt there. We need to kind of do that for ourselves. When we tell ourselves something, we need to follow through. We need to mean it, and we need to prove it to ourselves. So when you do this, when you tell yourself, it's okay, I can stop now because I can have some more later and it's no big deal, follow through on that promise. This helps reinforce the experience of food being available anytime, and especially particular foods that we may have been restricting in the past being available anytime. It proves it to you. This helps us to genuinely feel in alignment with that rather than have it exist in our minds as some kind of abstract hypothetical thought experiment. Also, another reason to do this is when we have that food again later, maybe when we're not craving it quite as much, we get a more objective experience of that food. When we only eat foods when we're craving them, our experience of that food is kind of warped. We're caught up in the craving, caught up in the emotional experience of it. We kind of get swept away, and it's like we have a memory of that food being better than it really is. But sometimes when we actually eat these foods outside of cravings, we connect with it on a bit more of an objective level and kind of think like, is this really everything that I'd hoped and dreamed for when making this food choice? Like, it might be nice, for sure, but what we're looking for here is an objective experience of that food rather than one that's caught up in being part of a craving. So I really want to encourage you to do this. Have a snack, have something, whatever it is. Challenge your boundaries with food a little bit. If there's like a food out there that you struggle to eat happy amounts of or feel good amounts of, if you find yourself regularly kind of crossing a line into a lot of physical discomfort, give this a shot. Practice having a bit, being present, and then making the choice to put it down or put it away with every intention of having some again later. Do your best to treat this as an experiment that's free from judgment. Approach it with curiosity. What happens if I do this? How does this feel? What thoughts do I notice? What feelings do I notice? Sorry, the sun's come out and my blinds are doing a thing. But anyway, we're gonna keep going. Why does the sun only ever come out in England when I'm filming a video? Anyway, where was I? Damn it. Essentially, we can't kid ourselves with this stuff. If you genuinely believe that no food is a big deal because the same stuff is going to be available later, it will be much easier to stop. And again, I know this can feel complicated. I know there's a lot of stuff flying around decisions like this. So if you do need support, if you do want to know what this might look like for you in your unique situation, book a call with me by following a link in the episode description. I didn't do the YouTube guy thing at the start of the video and say, hey, my name is Marcus Kane, I'm a nutrition coach. Who has time for that? So remember to change how we feel, not just to have things exist in our minds as like a weird mindset kind of thought experiment. We need to act in alignment with the feelings that we want to have. We need to act in alignment with the beliefs we want to have. If we genuinely want to feel like, a particular food isn't all that special, that it'll be available later so I can stop eating now, it's no big deal, then we need to prove it. And being able to do stuff like this comes with practice. This is 100% a practicable skill. So if you try this once and it ends up being a bit kind of wonky, that's okay. What did you notice? How present were you able to be? What feelings did you encounter? What thoughts did you encounter? When we experiment with things, we notice things. We set out to understand as much about the experience as possible. So before you start just putting labels on stuff and saying, I just can't control myself around food, or it's food addiction, or anything like that, take an extra beat, and maybe one of these days I can get proper lighting for where I film. My name's Marcus. This was Strong Not Starving.